Now, Luffy versus Katakuri is right around the corner, the main event fight between these two fearsome fighters. And by the way, spoiler warning for any of you guys and gals that are not caught up to chapter 886 of One Piece. Now, in the latest chapter of One Piece, Ichiro Oda did drop a fairly big bomb when it comes to what he intends for Luffy to attain when it comes to defeating the oh-so magnanimous, the oh-so amazing Charlotte Katakuri, my main man. And in doing so, he's confused a lot of folks when it comes to Kenbunshoku Haki, when it comes to observation Haki. So I'm here to clarify to you guys and gals Kenbunshoku Haki and what it is exactly we are getting when it comes to the previous stuff involving Luffy, like let's say Luffy and Mihawk, and many of the dodging scenes that we see in the series when it comes to the sensing abilities, when it comes to Rayleigh, when it comes to Enel, and so on and so forth. Because what we're gonna get here maybe when it comes to the Luffy and Katakuri fight is Luffy attaining a higher degree of observation Haki. That is his intent, mind you, that's his intent, but will actually happen in the fight. No. I'm gonna say no, but we'll set it for another video. First and foremost, let us talk about Kenbunshoku Haki. There are, generally speaking, two spheres of Kenbunshoku Haki. The first sphere is presence, and the second sphere is precognition. Those are the two general spheres of Kenbunshoku Haki. When it comes to practitioners, when it comes to users of Kenbunshoku Haki, observation Haki, what we see here are bits and pieces, the vast majority of users, of both presence and precognition. Now, core examples of presence would be Zoro and Sanji being able to sense Caribou when they were in the main palace of Fishman Island, and Caribou was in the area and he was attacking Shirahoshi. Another example of this would be Fujitora, who is blind, but it was still able to perceive the people around him as they were quote-unquote chasing the Straw Hats and thus the pirates off of Dressrosa. But he could tell that the people around him, they had no killing intent whatsoever. Another example would be Queen Oito from Fishman Island back in the past, where she could sense the feelings of the citizens and she could negotiate and talk to people that were upset because she knew she could sense their feelings, she could sense their distress, she could sense their anger and their love and so on and so forth. Another example would be Rayleigh. When they first hit the island that Luffy was trading on, he could sense the entire island, mind you, the entire island. And he knew that there were 500 creatures that were stronger than Luffy at that time. Another clear example of President's Kenbunshoku Haki would be Usopp seeing the auras of Luffy, Sugar, and Law through the wall when he sniped Sugar from afar on Dressrosa. I would say that all of those are categorized under the presence type of Kenbunshoku observation Haki. Now, the second sphere of Kenbunshoku Haki is precognition, the ability to predict the future in some way, shape, or form. Now, this is shown in various ways in the One Piece story as well. First would be many of the dodging scenes where it is specifically noted that Kenbunshoku Haki is being used. So this, of course, is the priest of Enel back on Skypiea, Enel himself on Skypiea, Sunder Sonia when she's dodging the Gatling of Luffy, Luffy himself when he's dodging the water bullets of Horty Jones. Kenbunshoku Haki is used in order to dodge these attacks. That is a certain degree of precognition. But we'll get to the finer details later, obviously. Now, another example of this sphere of observation Haki would be the fortune tellers that we see in the series. The two in particular I'm talking about here are Madame Shirley and Basil Hawkins. Now, Hawkins, he knew that the shadow of death wasn't on him. He knew that Shibuya Archipelago would not be the place where he would die. And we've seen Hawkins foretell the future with his cards. Madam Shirley, she knew that Whitebeard would die. She knew that the War of the Strongest would take place, that Whitebeard would die. Her fortune-telling ability is very accurate. But in their case, they appear to use mediums to foresee the future. More often than not, the distant future, sometimes not so distant like Hawkins, but at the same time, still fairly distant compared to your normal Kenbunshoku Haki, where it is specifically tailored to dodging attacks. This goes double, triple for Madam Shirley, who is seeing the future of months, maybe years or decades to come. With Hawkins, I can't be too sure if this is the case, but for Madam Shirley, we do know that she had her crystal ball with her when she was a kid. So that may have played a role when it came to her utilizing her Kenbunshoku Haki. And Hawkins might be the same as well, but the fact of the matter is that those two, they have mediums by which they're able to see the future, the means of which they're able to activate their precognition. And of course, finally, the last example of this sphere of observation Haki is my main man, Katakuri, who can see the oncoming actual future a few seconds before it happens. Now, when it comes to the sphere of presence Kenbunshoku Haki, the highest we've seen thus far in the series is Enel. Enel had the ability to perceive all of the voices, meaning all the life, in not just Skypiea, but also Upper Yard as well. His range was 2 islands. Quite literally 2 islands. He could sense the entire area. And then on top of that, by enhancing this Kenbunshoku Haki, by using his ability, the Goro no Mi, he could also listen to people talk from miles, from dozens to hundreds of miles away. He could hear them speak. Now, when it comes to the precognition sphere, of course, the highest we've seen thus far in the entire series is my main man, Charlotte Katakuri. I am a Katakuri fanboy. I'm an Enel fanboy. These characters are phenomenal characters for obvious reasons. If you disagree with me, you're a fool. So that right there is a general breakdown of the spheres of observation Haki to get you guys to hopefully get a better picture of what we're dealing with here when it comes to people that may specialize in certain groups, in certain categories of Kenbunshoku Haki. You can specialize in one direction, in another direction, or all directions. Now, the only person that we've seen who is kind of close in all directions would be Rayleigh. Kind of, because as far as we know, Rayleigh isn't rocking the ability to actually foresee the actual oncoming future like Katakuri is. But his precognition is in fact good enough to where he's able to keep track with Kizaru, who moves at the speed of light. Ferocious, and on top of that, he could sense an entire island. He knew the power of the creatures on the island. We know that Rayleigh, he could also discern feelings via Kenbunshoku Haki as well. So Rayleigh is the closest thing to mastery in all directions when it comes to Kenbunshoku Haki. But again, there are specialists. Enel is the key specialist of presence. Katakuri is a key specialist in precognition. Now, before I go to the next section, I do want to plug in my store. There'll be a link in the box below to my store where you can enjoy shirts like these, the Warrior, among many other shirts. Top 5 is there as well. Check it out. Once again, there'll be a link in the box below to the Teespring store as well as the Redbubble store, apparel and merchandise for you guys to check out. Now, when it comes to the voice of all things, because this was brought up in many topics, not only in the past, but also as of late, because we're talking about Kenbunshoku Haki and the voice of all things being able to hear things like animals and poneglyphs, you would consider would be a part of the Kenbunshoku Haki route. However, given the context of the story and what Oda has told us, the voice of all things is not observation Haki. As far as we know, once again, the voice of all things is not observation Haki. It could be a unique Haki bracket of its own. It apparently shares a similarity with Conqueror's Haki, where you cannot train to attain Conqueror's Haki. Now, whether that means you attain Conqueror's Haki through birth or you attain it through doing certain other acts in the world of One Piece, it's not explained. But you cannot train to attain a Conqueror's Haki. And in a very similar sense, you cannot train to attain the voice of all things as far as we know. We know very little about Haki in general. We know even less about the voice of all things. But as far as we know, you cannot train to attain the voice of all things. But there are people that do have this ability. First of all, there was the former King of the Pirates, Gold D. Roger. Then there is current day Monkey D. Luffy. Then there is apparently the Three-Eyed Tribe. By activating the true ability of their third eye, they can use the ability, the voice of all things. And then finally, certain members of the Kozuki clan, like Momonosuke and his father. Now the next thing here is if, because we just went over why it's probably not, but if it is a version, a variant of observation haki, then it is a subcategory. It is a subcategory of the presence sphere. Specifically, it is the subcategory of being able to feel people's feelings and emotions, what we see with Orihime and Isa, as well as being able to understand things like inanimate objects, like poneglyphs, and animals that don't speak human language. But again, if Oda does reveal that it is under the category of Kenbunshoku Haki, then it's probably going to be a subcategory, not necessarily a subcategory, but probably a subcategory of the sphere of presence. And finally, this ties to Zoro. Zoro, back when he fought against Das Bones, he activated something in him that was very Kenbunshoku Haki-like, but also had a little sprinkle of the voice of all things. And because of the latest Kenbunshoku Haki talk, people have gone back to Zoro. After Das Bones does his quote-unquote fishing attack on Zoro, Zoro somehow knew that the rubble wasn't going to fall in this specific location. He knew where his sword was, and his sword is an inanimate object. The sword itself is not a living thing, nor does it speak human tongue. It's a sword. It's steel. But he knew where his sword was under which piece of rubble. And then finally, on top of all of that, he talks about the rhythm of the stone, the rhythm of the trees, the rhythm of the soil, and how Das Bones, his body, emits its own unique rhythm. The rhythm thing has not been brought up ever since, as far as I know. But you would figure, for the overall sake of the story, and Kenbunshoku Haki specifically, talking about the rhythm of the soil and the steel and the stone and the trees, and how Zoro knew where his sword was under a piece of rubble. He knew exactly where it was. You have to question what's going on there exactly. And if Luffy is brought to the brink in the same fashion that Zoro's brought to the brink against Das Bones, then potentially Luffy could unlock a higher degree of Haki, maybe in the same fashion that Zoro did, maybe, because again, we're not too sure what exactly happened there. What Zoro did could be specifically tailored to swordsmen, and how swordsmen, they use their swords all the time, and so they are one with their sword. They can sense the presence, or I suppose the rhythm of their weapons, because the sword is an extension of themselves. It's like their arm. Because of that, it could be swordsman slash weapon user specific, because the sword that Zoro picked up is his most precious sword. So Oda has yet to completely unravel that tangled up mess, but is there something there with Zoro that notes at Kenbunshoku Haki? I would say yes. The voice of all things, because it's inanimate object stuff?
Hell no! No!
I'm gonna say no. We need a lot more evidence before we can start giving Zoro OD Haki traits. Conqueror's Haki is one thing, but the voice of all things. Oh, and again, we're not even too sure that the voice of all things is even Haki. We have to wait and see until Oda unravels more of the voice of all things before we can start getting concrete when it comes to that and how that ties into Haki. So that is the second section of the video, and finally the third section of the video is going to be the main difference between Katakuri's Kenbunshoku Haki and Luffy's observation Haki. There is a big difference that at first I didn't really understand myself, but then when I actually started to read the chapters and think about it, it actually makes a lot of sense. And I had to go back. I had to go back to Skypiea, because Skypiea is full of Kenbunshoku Haki stuff. It's full of it. Very important stuff there. So, the one major thing that separates what we see with Luffy and Thunder Sonia and what we get with Rayleigh probably, but his to a higher degree, obviously, what we see with Sanji and Queen Orihime, it's intent. It's that one word, intent. Intent is the key. Let's get more specific here. Luffy somehow knew that his arms were going to get cut off when he was going to attack Mihawk during the Marineford War. I would say that's under the same category as Aokiji, when Aokiji knew that Diamond Jozu was coming with a giant diamond forearm. He somehow perceived this in that one split second. Aokiji was able to react to it because that's what Diamond Jozu intended to do. Luffy was able to react to it because his Kenbunshoku Haki kicked in because he knew what Mihawk intended to do. Now you see where I'm going with this. The main reason why Zoro defeated Ohm back in Skypiea was because Zoro himself did not know how powerful the 36-pound cannon would be if he used all of his 3 swords. He had no idea. The 108-pound cannon he did off the cuff on the fly. Ohm had no idea that the attack itself was going to be that powerful because Zoro himself had no idea that the attack was going to be that powerful. Ohm thought that he could overpower Zoro's attack with his cloud sword, what it was called, the whip thing. Another example would be Luffy using the Gomu Gomu no Tako. When he used the Gomu Gomu no Tako against Enel, Luffy had no idea where his punches were going to land. The intention of the attack, Enel couldn't read at all. Even though Enel was actively using Kenbunshoku Haki, he was actively using his mantra, he could not perceive the intent of Luffy because Luffy himself did not know where the attacks were going to land. So in this sense, think of it like this. What we normally get when it comes to dodging via Kenbunshoku Haki, via observation Haki, is an enhanced version of the Sharingan from Naruto, where via certain muscle tensions and eye movements, the smallest movement in the body can allow a Sharingan user to predict what the person is going to do next, which is why they can copy things on the fly. Which is why they can perceive very fast movements, once again based on muscle tension and the smallest movements. Because those smallest movements give away a person's intent. By using the Kenbunshoku Haki itself, you're able to perceive intent without the need of sight. You just know what the person intends to do, and as a result, you can accordingly react to that person's attacks. Luffy knew what Hori Jones intended to do when it came to the water bullets, and where they were going to fly, because that's what Hori Jones' intent was, and as a result, he was able to react to that. So in a sense, you are able to predict the future, but it's very limited and it's very specific. You are able to predict the future of attacks and movements based on the intent of the individual that is doing said thing. The difference between that and what Katakuri is doing is Katakuri is actually seeing the legitimate oncoming future despite intent. Intent is irrelevant in Katakuri's observation Haki. He knows the legitimate future That is the difference here. So at the end of this chapter, when Luffy says, "Can I do it too? Be able to see the future?" It's because in reality, what we're getting with Kenbunshoku Haki, when you have Thunder Sonia say, and when you have Rayleigh say, they're able to perceive these future movements because that is what their opponent intends to do. So that being said, guys and gals, I am done. Hopefully, I do hope that this gave you greater insight on what is Kenbunshoku Haki and what we've seen thus far, and how Katakuri is quite literally leagues above the rest when it comes to that field of Haki, and how Luffy attaining that level of Haki because he wants to all of a sudden now. Really? Again, as far as we know, not even Rayleigh can do that. But it would make a lot of sense if we did focus on his Haoshoku Haki. That is what Luffy is best at, according to Ichiro Oda. But we will save that for another video, because there is going to be a Haoshoku Haki video coming up soon. And we'll talk about Zoro, we'll talk about Mihawk, and we'll talk about many, many things. So, that's it, guys and gals. I am done. Of course, once again, check out the apparel. There'll be 2 links in the box below to Teespring and Redbubble. Be sure to rate the video. It is not that hard to do. I guarantee you that, because I know that you all have a device called Zamaosu, and you use Zamaosu to click, rate the video, to click, subscribe, to click on that bell to join the squad, and of course, comment. Please do. Let me know your thoughts on the matter at hand. Comment in the comment section down below. Peace, and have a nice goddamn day. Hopefully, I did clarify a lot of stuff about Kenbunshoku Haki. Hopefully.